All right. Good evening. Let's see, this is the MSAD11 policy committee meeting for January 4th, 2024. I'm going to call this meeting to order. We'll do quick introductions for committee members and administrators. I'm Tony Veet, chair of the policy committee.
Jack Fedoroff.
Molly Rogers.
I'm Hopkins superintendent, and we do have two board members who are unable to be here this evening. So
Nate Stubborn, athletic director.
all right. So this meeting is focusing solely on athletics. So I mentioned to you at the last meeting that we're trying to wrap up all of the policies that need to be reviewed this year. They're scheduled to be reviewed. Usually your review is on a 5-year cycle. And so this brings us close. There are a couple others that are hanging out there that I still need to work on, and I haven't had time yet. But this really is the bulk of what is remaining. So I asked Nate to be here so that he can answer any questions that you may have. So as we look at the first group of policies, the JJAP, JJA-R, the JJA, JJF, then the A1 that's attached to JJA, JJF, and A2. All of those policies were reviewed and created after a group of individuals came together. It was actually around COVID, or a little bit before COVID when we started. We spent a lot of time. So we had coaches at the table. Nate was at the table. The administration was at the table. Board members. Actually, Tony, I think you may have been at the table, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so. Yeah. I'm surprised you don't remember. Well, I think so. What? I recall some pretty hard conversations then, so it's still pretty vivid in my mind. So I just want to lay that out there, that all of this work went through a very extensive process. We looked at lots of policies from around the state. The concern at the time had to do with whether we were offering athletic programs that should be discontinued based on the number of students participating, or if there were other programs that we should be offering that we weren't. There was concern with the amount of money that we spend. These can be very expensive, some athletic programs. And the board wanted to make sure that they were being fair, and they also were looking at it through Title IX to make sure that we were meeting our Title IX requirements. So, Nate, did I miss anything?
Nope.
Okay. So the first policy, the JJA, you already reviewed. You reviewed that at your last policy meeting because there wasn't anything of substance that needed to be changed. And I wasn't ready. Nate hadn't gotten back to me yet, hadn't had a chance to review all of these yet. And so I just moved forward with just the JJA. So that's why it's not here, okay? So if you go to JJA-P, we spent a lot of time talking about participation guidelines for student activities and trying to decide what is the appropriate number of students that have to be on a team in order for it to be sustainable. So that's what you're looking at. Now, I highlighted the baseball and the softball because those are two teams that in the last few years have struggled to field a team. We start out thinking we're going to have a lot of students, right? So let's keep it. But then when push comes to shove, we don't actually end up having the participation levels that is required here. And as our student enrollment continues to decline, I mean, probably when we created this, student enrollment at the high school was around 650. Now it's down to 580 something, 590. I think it's 580 something. So, we have to take a long, hard look at this. So you will also see some items in here where I've double underlined or they're like modified, like football from 15 to 33. Nate can talk about that. Golf from 5 to 6. We added cross-country a few years back. We had it, we dropped it because of enrollment and participation levels, added it back, so you'll see that I added it. And then just kind of updated this policy based on decisions of the school board over the past few years regarding all extra and co-curricular activities, so.
Question on the middle school cross-country, it requires 6 students and the high school requires 5. Is there a reason you need more on the middle school team?
No, actually not. I mean, cross-country, there's some sports that are minimum requirements to have a team. For
Right.
instance, tennis requires 5, golf requires 6.
Mhm.
Cross-country is an arbitrary number. It's essentially, and
We got to.
I'm glad you picked that up because those two should probably be the same.
Okay.
And I would say 5. I'd like to go, from my perspective as an athletic director, I want to keep as many teams as possible. And that's how we build programs. And so if we have the lowest possible number, that I'm also trying to keep, the budget in mind as well and be fiscally responsible. But at the same time, we have to be able to build our programs too.
Right. Yeah.
And if I could just speak to a couple of the changes, just so everybody knows, under football, I changed it to 33, and I want to put maybe a caveat there. The reason I did that is because the MPA requests or their recommendation is that if you drop below 33, currently we have an 11-man football team at the high school. If you drop below 33, the recommendation is to go 8-man. So maybe that's the caveat, is we put an asterisk there saying that if we drop below 33, the recommendation is to go to 8-man. I would say if we drop below 15, then we discontinue, but I don't know how you wanted to handle that. That's why I put 33.
Yeah, and I saw that note, but I just didn't feel it was appropriate at that time,
Yeah.
not understanding the context to include in the policy, but maybe it is.
I think so, because it
It'd be a good fit.
highlights that tipping point.
Yeah.
That the recommendation would be there, and obviously, we want students to have playing time and have opportunity, but also to be safe, right? And so, then you've got. You're short a sub potentially or whatever for if someone is injured, and we don't want people playing.
And now that we're on that topic, two other things actually that weren't, when we created this policy, Pat, back a while ago, there was no eight persons soccer, and there was no 8-person field hockey. Those are brand new this year. So when I revamped this the other day, when I looked at it, I'd forgotten about that too. So we might want to change those numbers too a little bit for soccer and field hockey, because that's coming into play. So maybe we keep the numbers as they are and maybe put an asterisk there as well, saying if they drop below that, we look at going to 8-person field hockey and 8-person soccer.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. Is that the same for varsity and JV?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
How does that work if you're
Good question.
fielding an 8-person team and you're playing against another team that would ordinarily have 11?
No, it's only 8. It's only 8. So
Other teams that have.
Yeah. you only play against other 8-person teams.
Does that tip over in the middle of the season? Like what happens?
No, you would have to declare it before the season starts. Yeah.
But it doesn't change the team. It doesn't change the teams you play, only the number of people that you put on the field during the game.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've followed Maine football at all. So Maine football went to 8-man football, 4 or 5 years ago, and they have their own division. So there's Class A, there's Class B, there's Class C, Class D, and then there's 8-man. And so it's all those schools that just have 8-man football. So And some of the bigger schools, you'd be surprised, have gone to that because the numbers were declining.
Other questions on this one?
Quick spelling thing, we've got co-op team up there, it says coop team. I would tend to go with a hyphen there, but I'm okay if we,
The second column with ice hockey. Right at the
second,
top.
second column, yeah, so
Those are both
underfunded
the same.
athletic teams, high school. But, yeah, ice hockey boys, 10 students, co-op team.
You don't like Coop team?
Under the funded co-curricular activities for middle school. I'm sorry, are you still looking, Pat?
I don't see
Oh,
The second column at the top of the policy. Where it
the
lists
second
ice
column.
hockey boys,
Yeah.
it says coop team in parentheses. After ice hockey.
Oh.
So we're suggesting a hyphen.
Gotcha. Yeah, and the only reason is to try to keep it to that column.
oh no.
Yeah.
That if you add another,
Yeah.
right, another little character, then it switches to the
Yeah.
next column.
Yeah.
So that's why it says that.
Don't
Yeah.
miss it.
I was down looking at cooperative going, did I spell that wrong? I don't understand what they're
Sorry.
talking about. Okay, gotcha. I can try, but yeah.
Don't spend,
Your time.
yeah.
Pat, is the JV boys ice hockey, there's a line going through it, but is it still?
Oh, I thought I
Still good.
removed that.
Okay.
Yeah, let me remove that. Because I thought that we did not have a JV ice hockey team. And Nate corrected me and told me that we still did, but how many games do they play?
0 this year, right now. So last year we had a full squad. This year we don't have enough. The expectation is, and we don't have a coach this year for it. We just have Casey and a volunteer. But the expectation is with the co-op that hopefully with 3 schools, our numbers will rebound and we'll still have that.
Okay.
My only other question under, it's on the second page, the funded co-curricular activities for middle school. It's just for consistency purposes, but it just lists numbers and it doesn't say students afterwards. And the rest of them list, 15 students, 6 students.
Yep. Wonder why that happened. Okay. Anything else?
The other edits here.
Okay. All right, then move on to -R. And in this particular one, there was just one addition recommended by Nate and by Lauren. And that is a sub-varsity team. So if we place a sub-varsity team on probation and we don't have a team playing, then we haven't hired a coach, right? And so the recommendation is that we still hire the coach, which means you still pay him the stipend. But that particular coach will be part of the larger coaching staff until it's determined that it is a discontinued team. Other school districts do it. My stepdaughter is a JV coach in another school district in the area, and they haven't had a JV basketball team for 2 years, and they've kept her on, and she, practices with the varsity and everything else. So it's not unheard of at all, but it has not been a practice in our district. So I don't know, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, so the bigger picture is that part of our policy, which you'll see, is that if we fall below the minimum numbers, we have essentially 2 years that we're on probation. During those 2 years, that sub-varsity team will not play any games or may not play any games, or at least play any games that would have any cost to the district, extra busing or extra officials or anything like that. However, we have coaches that are good quality coaches, and those good quality coaches are hard to find. And I'd like to retain those coaches because our application pool is getting thinner and thinner. And so let's say we have a sport. So for instance, freshman boys basketball this year, we almost didn't have a team. And that would have meant that we would have had to tell the existing freshman boys basketball coach that, sorry, we don't have a stipend for you. However, we did get the numbers to support that, but in that case, we would have lost him. And then if the numbers regained next year, we would have had to hire somebody new because chances are he wouldn't have been available. So, and it's also an additional help to the varsity coaches who always need that extra help anyway. So that's why I requested that.
All right, like it, sounds like there's a, you know, practice elsewhere, and it kind of keeps the opportunity open to get the program back if the numbers return.
Right.
And we got an out if the numbers don't return.
Right.
I mean,
So that's the only change there. Are you okay with that?
Mhm.
All right, then moving on to the next JJF. You can see a lot of this work was done in 1920. So we eliminated the ones that referenced 1920. What else did we do? I think that was really the only thing that we touched.
Question about the second paragraph where it references Gardner Area High School specifically having a history of supporting or assisting in the formation and financial support. Is the high school the only other school that supports, or is that line just kind of caught me as a funny line to have in a policy for the district if it doesn't include, you know, the board of the actual middle school, or maybe they don't support, I don't know.
Well, the board sets the budget for everyone, right, for all the schools, so it's not like it's just Gardner Area High School by themselves.
Right,
The board sets the budget, so it is the board, it is the district.
yeah, it was just a funny line to read.
Yeah, I think this, I don't know where this came from specifically. I'm sure we took it from another place and thought it just demonstrated support.
Sure.
We do have, of course, a variety of student activities and organizations at the middle school as well, not solely isolated to the high school.
Mhm.
I mean, if you want, you could, rather than saying Gardner Area High School, you could certainly say the district has a history, right? And make it broader.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be okay with that. I mean, it has kind of that, you know, that air of a, you know, mission statement, or just the, you know, reason that we've been doing this and are going to continue to do this. But right, it's not just the high school that's got these programs.
It made it seem like a very personal statement in the middle of a policy. I don't think it's incorrect. I'm sure it has had a long history.
But yeah, we can change that to the district. Okay. Anything else on this one?
Page 2, in the definitions, and maybe it's not necessary here, but the coaching advisor stipends, is this where it should be referenced, or maybe in all of these costs? Do they need to be referenced in some form of hourly? I know that conversation has come up a number of times, but does the cost need to reflect any? Okay.
No, I don't think that needs to be included at all. This
Okay,
is really just to be clear that the amounts paid have to be sanctioned by the board, right? So we're just trying to be really clear that that's the amount that is paid to only to approved coaches. The amount is part of your collective bargaining agreement with your teachers association, so the board negotiates a total, right? And only that amount can be paid for sanctioned committees and clubs. And so we're just trying to clarify which teams got paid for what, you know,
Mhm.
because I think there was some confusion around, well, does a club get money for X, Y, Z, and who gets a stipend and who doesn't? And so I don't think it needs to go into that level of specificity.
perfect.
Anything else? I do want to keep an eye on the time. We do need to get out of here early today. So, all right, moving on to A1, sorry. This one, I will admit, I think that it could use some formatting and some adjustments. I ran out of time. I ran out of time before I had to pull this agenda together and get it out to you. So I added the high school cross-country kind of at the last moment. I made another little section to insert them. But there may be other ways of improving it at some point. I highlighted the two teams for baseball, softball, for the very reason that I mentioned at the beginning, that they've struggled, and I wasn't certain at the time if we were moving forward and keeping those two teams on the roster, or whether we were looking at putting them on probation or discontinuing them. Softball especially.
My only question with the A1, and it's the first 3 pages, just the consistency between, again, high school and middle school. I don't know if the specific coaches created the lists, and then they might have, okay. So the high school girls lacrosse listed goalie shirts, but the boys lacrosse did not. I don't know if that's,
They don't wear goalie shirts for the boys, they do for the girls.
okay. Learning something new.
So when this list was created, Nate worked with his coaches to come up with the list and to provide as much consistency
Yeah,
as possible.
okay. And the outdoor track, what is the team manager?
Where's
Listed in the supplies, I guess it's baseline supplies and fees, so on high school outdoor track, it's on page 2, kind of in the center of there's rake, shovels, team manager, program computer, and rule books.
Well, we don't pay a team manager. Could have been probably a software program that we had to use in the past.
Oh, okay, the name of the
Yeah.
program.
Yep.
Okay.
We are no longer able to host outdoor track meets due to our track conditions, and so we haven't been purchasing that.
Okay.
So why don't we keep it in there? I mean,
Yeah.
should something
Yeah,
change?
yeah, of
But,
course.
yeah. Anything else?
Some of the things also to add,
Yeah.
some of the things that are on here, or some of the things that may not be on here. Some of the teams, the individuals on the team, the athletes purchase them themselves. And so there are some certain things that were purchased when I started here individually and have continued to be purchased individually. There are some things that I feel that the school should be responsible for purchasing. But I also know it's a big expense to the school. For instance, not everybody, the school didn't purchase uniforms for every single team when I started. There were some that they were purchasing their own uniforms. And some like that because they get to keep them. But there's a downside to that too, is that not everybody can afford that. And so we also have it in our policy that that's one of the things that the school is going to supply is uniforms. So I've slowly been moving in that direction. I don't want to have it be a big hit to the district all at once because they're expensive.
Yeah,
But slowly moving in that direction that all the uniforms will be purchased by the school.
yeah, that equity.
Yeah.
Someone can afford it for the 4-year playing varsity sport, but the next person coming into the role.
Right.
It wouldn't be provided.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, are we good?
Good.
All right, then A2. The purpose of A2 was just to create a visual, right? Create a visual of the types of expenses that the board is budgeting for. That's the whole purpose of this. And again, when appropriate, to make it consistent. Questions? And I added new ones in here, like varsity club is new. So there's nothing at the present time that you provide money for, because it's only a club, but at some point it will be transportation. Food pantry, you do offer a stipend. So library, ukulele. No. And cross country was down here. Cross country's not a club, so I moved it up to athletics, but.
I know we have to be cognizant of the time, but now that I'm thinking about girls' ice hockey co-op that we have with Winslow and like 6 other schools, it's ridiculous. Very rarely, but on occasion, we have transported our girl hockey players to a location where they can meet the Winslow bus. We've done it on average probably once a year. Because most of the games that we play outside of the ice vault are south. And so Winslow would pick us up on the way at the ice vault. But we have played like a northern game where we would take the bus and bring it to Waterville or Winslow, drop the kids off there, and then they would pick up that bus and go to wherever their destination is. So maybe we should put transportation in there, even only if it's a couple times.
Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Again, understanding and being really clear regarding what you said. This is rare.
Right.
It's only for a limited distance. It is not to take them around the state.
Right.
Our transportation department is maxed. They're beyond maxed, and we cannot be adding sports.
Right.
And co-curricular teams that they are now expected to transport. It's just beyond their capacity, so, okay. All right, then we move into JJIAA. These policies are specific to private school students who wish to participate in co-curricular and or extracurricular. So basically, our policies or some of our forms in our backup are almost identical. It's just, there's different information that we need from families who are gonna have their children participate in athletics than in a co-curricular activity. And so that's why we have different forms versus combining them. Now, I already have received from Jack, who has already noted that under a verification eligibility forms, we have words son, daughter versus child, student. We've really sought to shift to gender neutral. It caught that, so we'll correct that. And from Tony, just cleaning up some things, like where it says student/parent notified of decision changed to student and parent guardian, that type of thing. And that we do have lots of places where it says just parent, and it really needs to say parent guardian. Those types of changes, so there are just a few of them, so I have those noted, so that those grammatical types of changes will occur. Substantive stuff. Anything here in policy JJIAA. And I took out all of the number signs, hopefully I got them all. No?
They're not substantive. In the paragraph I, co-curricular activities in the 3rd line, should it be and/or?
Okay, and I, participation in co-curricular activities.
3rd line.
Yeah.
Yep. Word policy product and/or.
Yeah, that's in my email too.
Okay, sorry, missed it.
Okay. Third one,
It's not
two, principal/designee in that area, in that line?
No, the 3rd line of the 1st paragraph. Maybe my printed copy. change the lines. Established by law, board policy.
I am slow today.
I can give you this copy.
And so where you're talking about the, okay, forward pol, and or I got it. I see it finally. Sorry, I see it.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Tony already said it in a more clear way.
Yes, that should be. There should be a slash there. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did help.
Okay.
Section 2. C,
Section 2C, yes.
the second line, enrolled students, there's a space between the student.
Yep.
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
That's why we do it as a team.
All right, moving on then to the next one, which is E1. All good? Any issues there? Okay. What about E2? Anything else?
Yeah.
All right, E3.
I don't know if this was already raised, but the bold language for co-curricular activity. Should be a hyphen. Okay.
That was
And
caught.
the extra on the next one.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I think
That's all.
that is in Tony's. Yeah. What's E3?
Yeah.
Okay. E4. Anything there? Okay, great. Then that brings us to the last one, which is JJIFE, which is our concussions protocol. There was a question regarding that from a policy committee member who could not be present, wanting to know if there's a licensed healthcare provider trained in concussion management on site at all games, and does the district provide access to such a provider free of charge in order to certify return of play? Yes, we have a contract with Maine General. We have an athletic trainer who attends the games. At some of the games, like some of the football games, they bring a doctor, orthopedic doctor with them to the game, so they're both there. And this is at no charge to students, so. There's always ambulance service, right?
When available.
When available, we'll call them. They're not sitting there necessarily anymore, so. Anything else?
On page 2, the first indented paragraph.
Yep. I'll fix that. Okay, anything else? All right, then we are good to go. We would just need a motion to move these forward to the board for first reading, second reading.
All right, could I get a motion?
I move that we move this forward to the board for a first reading.
All right. All right, any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Great. Sorry, Sage, you're not on policy. I can't count you. Next time. Appreciate you trying though.
I thought the meeting started. I'm sorry for being early.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Better early than late, right?
Spot.
Yeah, I did.
Sorry for being early.
All right, so we adjourned.
Here. Sorry.
All right, 6:09. Thank you all.